Good evening, brother. Welcome back to the next episode of Light Upon the Altar. Hope you enjoyed it so far. It's going to be episode 10. That's probably where I'm going to leave the first season. Just a short little season just to get started. It's been a few weeks since I've been able to record, so I'm trying to get a couple of episodes recorded and get some more content out to you. Maybe another week or two before I can get some more content out after this. So bear with me. I published episode 9 just a little bit ago, and by the time you hear this, it'll probably be out about a week because I'm going to have this one in the bank just to give myself some time to do my research on the next episode. It's going to be a great episode to start the season, and got some other things coming down the pipe as well, just speaking with other brothers. And as we begin, let's invoke the blessing of deity. Supreme Architect of the universe, we ask that your blessing be upon my words, and just that I'm out here speaking to the craft and just creating and spreading brotherly love and bringing some education to our fellow brethren, and may we all just always have harmony, not with just one another, but with all of mankind, and just get out there and show the world that we're just trying to shine more light into the world as Freemasons, and not add to the darkness in the world. We ask all these things in your Son's precious name. Amen. So may it be. Alrighty, brothers. Like I said, I'm going to wrap it up on this episode. And I've had a lot of fun so far doing this. Life's been a little crazy the last few weeks. Just some stuff going on in my personal life with my child, and she has a lot of mental health issues, and it just really has taken time away from this, but that's what's most important is our family. So this episode we're gonna talk about From Ritual to Reality, the lifelong work of a Mason. We end this season where the real work begins, not inside the lodge, but outside of it. Because ritual teaches, but life tests. And that's where many men get it wrong. You know, we got to take these lessons and these rituals, and we got to apply them to our everyday life. We got to take this work and shine it out into the world, or it's just going through the motions to get somebody through and just say that we got another brother. But what did we really do for him? Did we really educate? Did we really foster that relationship and nurture that education and that growth? And, did we shine out into the world enough that other people want to think, man, what is going on over there at that Masonic lodge? What are they doing in that Masonic lodge that make people want to go there? So, and two, how do we apply to our lives? Do we act justly? Do we act morally and upright outside of the lodge? Do we do all these things? Or do we just put on this face once or twice a month at our monthly meeting and I'm here, I'm a good guy, I'm doing good, doing this, doing that, but not applying these to our life? Because if we don't do that, the ritual is worthless, because it demands us to apply it to our lives to become better men. They experience something meaningful inside the lodge, something of structured, symbolic, even powerful. But then they walk out those doors and slowly return to the old habits. Maybe that's doing unmoral things, not honoring thy neighbor, being a good neighbor, not being a good employee or employee, not being a good husband, not being a good brother, not being a good father. We turn to the things of evil, and just old ways of thinking. And it's what they just experienced was separate from their real life. So do you just come to lodge and That's not just a reality. And then you go back to real life and you forget those principles. But Masonry was never meant to stay in the lodge. It was meant to go with you into your home, into your workplace. It goes into your decisions, your reactions, your character. Because at the end of the day, the ritual doesn't define you. Your actions do. And I tell people that all the time. How you react in a certain situation, the way somebody else reacts to you, that's their character, not yours. And you can't control that, but you can control your own actions and your own character. Tonight is not about what you've learned. It's about what you're doing with it. Are you applying it to your daily life? Because I promise you, if you do, life becomes much sweeter. Because the days that I forget to apply these lessons to my life, I promise they are bad days. And I'm only merely human, and I'm not going to sit here and say that I walk the walk every single day, because I definitely fail sometimes. And I hate to say that, but it's just part of life. It's part of the mold. It's a part of who I am. And God knew He made me that way. He made me imperfect. But I'm telling you, when I live these rituals and remember my obligations, not only to myself, but to thy neighbor, to my family, to my employer, to all of mankind I interact with, life is so much sweeter. It's just a beautiful thing that we can do out in the world. We're going to slow this down and really dig in. We're going to talk about what it actually looks like to live Masonry daily, why progress matters far more than perfection, and the kind of legacy that most men overlook but matters the most. And before we get into it, I want you to be honest with yourself. Not who you want to be, not who others think you are, but who you really are on a daily basis, because that's where the work begins. This is episode 10, From Ritual to Reality, the lifelong work of a Mason. Let's get into the first segment. Masonry is daily practice. Let's get real for a minute. It's easy to feel like a better man in the lodge, right? You show up, you're having good camaraderie, good fellowship. Hopefully you're having a good meal, and you're getting some education inside the lodge, and you just feel great. You feel recharged. You feel rejuvenated. Right? I know every month after my monthly meeting, I just feel rejuvenated because I've been with my brothers and just had that good camaraderie and fellowship. But it's easy, right? There's structure. There's accountability. There's symbolism remind you of a higher standards. But real life doesn't come with a ritual. Pressure comes in. Deadlines, conflict, fatigue. Just like I mentioned in the beginning of the episode, my life has been pretty chaotic the last couple of weeks dealing with my daughter and her mental health journey. And, sometimes I haven't handled that with the most grace or the most upstanding, but I did it in private, not in public. But still, I didn't apply these things to my life, these rituals and what I learned. And when I honed back in, and my lovely wife was like, just breathe, it's going to be okay. I knew it was going to be okay. In moments where you have seconds, not minutes, decide who you're going to be. Because sometimes, you know what? Somebody's counting on you right away. In that very second. And just think about that. You never know with your interactions, because you know what? You never know what somebody's going through. You never know what somebody's going through on a daily basis. You don't know what kind of things they're going through. And maybe just take a second to understand their point of view. Talk with them. That's where Masonry either becomes real or it becomes just saying you belong to. I know I just don't want to belong to the Masonic Lodge. I want to be a Mason, not just in the Masonic Lodge, but out in the public, out in the public eye, out with my fellow brothers, doing things, having, you know, this is some things we've been talking about in my lodge, and I hope we get on just going out, having, a monthly get together, just as brothers with our families and stuff like that. Those are the types of things that really matter at the end of the day. When does Masonry stop being something you just attend? Because it's not meant to be something you just attend. It is something you live. When you go through those obligations and you go through the rituals, there's so much to teach in there, and I get it. There's a lot to digest, but guess what? You have your entire life to study it. And shame on your brothers if they, and not to talk bad about anybody, but shame on your brothers if they don't empower that will with you. They don't go out and help you do that. One thing, I'm starting to meet more Masons as I get out there and as I've been doing this, and you can really start breaking down these lessons, and there's so much to learn from our fraternity. It's beautiful. And if you're not careful, it becomes routine instead of transformation. We've got to see where we're going with this, right? If we don't use it, it's just another dull tool. Just another dull tool that we have in our pocket. Yep, showed up, paid the bills, talked about maybe a potential candidate, talked about a fundraiser, went home. Next day got up, And that's where we get stuck. Because it's supposed to transform your life if you apply it and rely on a daily basis. So let me challenge you. What good is learning about integrity if you cut corners at work? If you cut corners in life? If you cut corners as a husband, as a brother, as a father, as an employee, as the little lady at the grocery store that may need a hand out to her car. Just speaking of that, I don't know why I spoke that, but it just popped in my head. I was back, this has been back, I was getting ready for our trunk or treat at Bethlehem Lodge, the lodge that I belong to in Birdseye, Indiana. And there's a little old lady, and I just seen her struggling to get her stuff off the cart in the conveyor, and I helped her get her heavier stuff on the conveyor. And this particular store doesn't have a bag boy. I remember my first job as a young man, I was a bag boy at the local grocery store, and I had a lot of fun doing it. But I said, "Ma'am, do you need some help getting that into your car?" She said, "That would be really nice." And, getting to talking to her as I was unloading her car, she's like, "I really appreciate this." I said, "Do you need help getting it at home? Because I don't mind finding him." She's like, "No, I'll get it." But, I got to talking to her, and she's like, "Well, what are you up today?" And I said, my Masonic Lodge down in Birdseye is having a trunk or treat. And she's like, "Oh my goodness, my husband was a member there. God rest his soul. He had passed, and I didn't know the brother. But, just that little interaction and just applying good stewardship into the world, I was able to help a fellow brother Mason's widow. And I didn't even know that she was a widow of a fellow brother Mason. I just seen a lady struggling, and I helped her. And I'm not telling you this because I want credit or I want glory, because that's not what I did it for. I just seen somebody in need, and I applied my lessons as a good human being in action out into the world. What good is learning about brotherly love if you're short-tempered at home? You can't just show up, once a month and spread brotherly love with your brothers, but be a jerk at home. That's where it becomes, as a father, as a husband. Sure, I fail at this. Not perfect. I'm not saying I'm perfect, brothers, but I try to be better. What good is discipline in theory if you lack it in private? That's the gap between ritual and reality, and every man has that gap. The question is, are you closing it or ignoring it? Because closing that gap takes effort, takes daily effort. Not once a week, not when it's convenient, but every day. We got to apply this every day. And most of that work is invisible. It looks like pausing before you react, choosing not to say the thing you could say, doing the right thing when it costs you something, or showing up when you'd rather check out. That's Masonry. Not the words. It's not the actions. And that's why I shared that story. I think, it wasn't about the words. It's about the actions. That's Masonry. I could have easily just watched that lady struggle and just went on about my day, because really it wasn't my business to intrude. But I seen somebody in need. And here's something most men don't want to admit. You don't rise to your ideals. You fall to your habits. Because it's easy to go back to your habits, right? It's easy to go back to those bad habits of doing what's not right. So if your daily habits don't align with what you claim to believe, eventually your actions will expose that. There's no condemnation. That's reality. So the question becomes, what are your daily habits building? What are you building? How are you applying this to your life? Are you taking these lessons and applying them to your life? Are you doing what's right on a daily basis? Are you building that? And just start small. You don't have to take it all. Just take it in small little chunks. Because whether you realize it or not, you're building something every single day. Your character, your reputation, your legacy, brick by brick, choice by choice. And Masonry gives you the blueprint, but it's on you to do the building. Next segment, progress, not perfection. This is something I've kind of been talking about. Little progress, I don't expect people to just go out and be perfect, because it's not possible, right? Now let's deal with something that quietly derails a lot of men. And I have felt guilty of this trap. Perfectionism. It sounds noble. It sounds disciplined. But most of the time, it's actually fear in disguise. Because if you believe you have to be perfect, you'll hesitate to act. You'll beat yourself up when you fail. And eventually, you'll stop trying altogether. That's not growth. That's stagnation. Now, I'm going to get real here, because that's something I've struggled with in my daily life. As a supervisor at my job, I strive for perfection. And it's just this thing, that we do as men. And, it's caused me to come up short. It's caused me to not clearly think, because I'm just constantly battling perfection. And once somebody got a hold of me, somebody that I really respect and adore and have a lot of admiration for, pulled me aside, and he really ripped me a new one. And I can't thank him enough for it, because it made me realize I was the problem. It was me. But let's be clear about something. You're going to mess up. And that's okay. Just admit when you mess up. You're going to have days where you're impatient. Happens. You're distracted. You fall short of your own standards. It doesn't make you a failure. It only makes you merely human. But here's where the line gets drawn. Do you stay there? or do you grow from it? Because mistakes are not the problem. Patterns are. Everyone stumbles. Not everyone corrects course. And Masonry calls you to correct that course. So if we fail, how do we change actions? I always say, and I went through this a lot, because I've been through a lot of transition this past year. And the definition of insanity, defined by Albert Einstein, is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. And made a coworker laugh over that. He's like, I was like, look it up. It truly is. So Masonry calls you to correct that course again and again and again, even when it's frustrating. Even when progress feels slow. Sometimes slow. You ever heard the term, you got to slow down to speed up? Sometimes you just got to reel things in and really focus on what really matters. And get that slow progress. Sometimes slow wins. You know what I mean? A little victory here. The battle's not won all in one battle. Any great military general from the past can tell you that. No war was won off a single battle. A single battle may have defined the war, but all those little victories in between help set the stage for that final victory. Same way in life. Get up, go to work, do good, be good, come home, do good, be good, honor the Father in the sky, in heaven, live a good life. That's how you just keep building. But let me give you a hard truth. Growth is often sometimes boring. It's not dramatic. It doesn't always feel rewarding. It feels like small improvements over a long period of time. And most people quit because they don't see immediate results. And that's something that a lot of people struggle with. They want to see the immediate results. They need just that immediate gratification. But the men who stay committed, they change, not overnight, but undeniably. And here's what that looks like over time. You become less reactive. You become more thoughtful. You become more consistent and more dependable. You're not perfect, but you're better. And that's the goal. Not perfection, progress. And you really think about it, just getting better each day. That is perfection. Because at the end of it, you keep doing that. And then hopefully by the time you lay down your working tools, your ashlar is perfect. Because you progress every single day until you lay down your working tools. Because a man who is committed to growth will outpace a man who is waiting to feel ready. So if you've been holding yourself back because you're not where you want to be, good. That means you're aware. Now do something with it. Adjust. Refocus. Keep moving. Because the only real failure is refusing to grow. And in case you didn't hear that, the only real failure in life is refusing to grow. Next, the quiet legacy. Let's talk about something that doesn't get enough attention. The quiet legacy. Because if you're not careful, you'll start measuring your life by the wrong standards. Recognition, status, visibility. And, when I started this podcast, I was sometimes a part of another podcast, that other Masonic podcast, and I've never done it for anything. I stay quiet in the background, I'm not even my own podcast now. I'm not doing it for any recognition. I'm not doing it for status or visibility. I'm doing it just because I enjoy this research and I enjoy talking Masonry. And I hope that it reaches somebody and makes an impact on their life. But those things, that's not where most real impact happens. Most real impact happens quietly in the day-to-day consistency of a man who does what's right. not for attention, but because it is who he is. Let me say something that might challenge you. You may never be widely known. You may never be publicly recognized. You may never have a platform, and that's okay. You know, I think about all the way back to the Inner Apprentice when you're getting your apron lecture and talking about how innocent and emblematic and how it's a badge of a Mason. And no matter what happens to you in life, even if, and this is not a jab at Grand Lodge, but even if you get the purple of our fraternity resting upon your shoulders as a Grand Line officer, there's no more noble thing that will ever be bestowed upon you and given to you than your white lambskin apron. Just remember that about your legacy. Being quiet and just doing the right thing sometimes is all the legacy you need to leave behind. Because your purpose was never tied to popularity. It was tied to responsibility. To your family, your work, your community. That's where legacy is built. Not in big moments, but in consistent ones. Being a father your kids can trust. A husband who shows up. A worker who did his job with integrity. A friend who can be relied on. That's not small. That's everything. So if you're doing those things, you're being a great father, great husband, great worker, and a great friend, great brother. It's everything. And here's the reality. The world is changed more by faithful men than famous ones. Think about it in Christianity. Sure, Jesus, he's known wide, from as far east as from west. But, he came down to be with the lowly man, the poor, the outcast, the sick. Because that's who he was. That's who he preached to. That's who he was trying to reach. Hoping that the others would fall in line. Because faithful men, we raise strong families. We build stable communities. We set standards others follow, even if they never get credit for it. And that's the kind of man Masonry calls you to be. So if you're doing something because you want to be remembered and you want somebody to just know what you did, Masonry's not for you. Because if you're just out seeking credit, it's no worse than the people nowadays on TikTok lives or Facebook lives giving gobs of money to a homeless person because they want that instant recognition. If you're doing it for those reasons, you're not doing it for the right reasons at all. It's not impressive. Consistent, not perfect. Reliable, not loud, steady. Because in the end, the people closest to you will define your legacy. Not the crowd, not the audience, but the ones who lived life with you. So the question is, when they think of you, what will they say? That's your real legacy, and you're building it right now. And we talk about this on that other Masonic podcast a lot. That's the biggest question asked at the end, and people answer it as a Mason, as a man. I've answered it as both, but I just want to be known as a humble man that did right, was a good father, was a good brother, was a good employee, was a noble man, was a righteous man, right with his Lord. And that's all I ever need. closing this all up, been a lot of heavy talk. And I've had a lot of different lessons. I've learned a lot myself, about Freemasonry. Probably some things that I could have did better in these first 10 episodes. But I'm still learning and I'm still growing. So, there's going to be a few things I want to leave you here with. Freemasonry asks one enduring question: will you continue the work? Not just when it's easy, not just when you feel motivated, but when it's hard, when you're tired, when no one is watching. Will you apply what you've learned? Take responsibility for your growth. Live with intention. Lead with integrity. Because here's the truth. No one can do the work for you. The lodge can guide you. Your brothers can support you. But at the end of the day, it comes down to your choices, your habits, your commitment. This isn't about finishing a season. It's about starting a lifelong process of becoming the man you were meant to be. So don't walk away from the season unchanged. Take something with you. Apply it. Live it. Build it, because the tools have been given. The lessons are in front of you. Now the question is simple. Will you continue the work? Till next time, keep working, keep building, and keep your light upon the altar. So mote it be, brothers.